I became a fire lookout in Idaho. The sinister rules my boss revealed are haunting me. Emily stood at the top of the wooden tower, gazing out at the sprawling wilderness beneath her, an ocean of trees that reached as far as the eye could see. Fresh air filled her lungs, but it was tainted with tension. "Stay in the lookout after dark," Hank had said, his voice rough like gravel. "Just trust me on this." Those words echoed in her mind, twisting her stomach into knots. Her heart raced with the chilling realization that they were not alone out here. At first, the silence was like a bomb. Luke bounded around the base of the tower, laughing as he chased frogs, small joys that felt miles away from the chaos of their past. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, a thick fog rolled in, swallowing their laughter whole. Shadows crept closer, and with them, whispers that seemed to slither through the trees. What were they saying? She could never quite catch the words, just the eerie sense of being watched. An odd itch at the back of her neck. Then came that morning, a deer, bloodied and lifeless, laid near the base of the lookout. The sight made her stomach churn. What had happened to it? Why was it here? Hank just shrugged it off, but there was no way to dismiss the growing weight on her chest. Why was she feeling more hunted than safe in this supposed sanctuary? The longer she stared into the woods, the more warped and twisted her own world became. Each figure she thought she saw flitted away, leaving only shadows behind. Luke started to withdraw, retreating into the trees, whispering to friends only he could see, friends with no names, friends that made Emily dread the darkness that promised to swallow them whole. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The whispers became laughter. Not joy-filled laughter, but a malevolent sound that danced on the edges of her sanity. Each night felt like an immersive nightmare. The crickets sang their chorus like a sick joke, the hoot of an owl curdled her blood. Emily found herself looking over her shoulder, every creak of the tower making her jump. The friends Luke spoke of were a shadowy complication in her mind. The more she tried to reach him, the further he seemed to drift. They shared a bond, a history, but it felt like it was fraying under the weight of something darker. Emily's fears solidified as she learned more about the scattered neighbors. Hank had warned her against disappearances that blurred the line between myth and reality. The folklore came alive in the symbols painted on the trees, tales of spirits that played cruel games with their prey. Fear coursed through her veins, leaving her no choice but to confront Hank. What did he really know? What dark secrets did he keep? Steeling herself, she crept towards the base of the tower under the cover of a fog so thick it felt like a living thing. And as she approached him, laughter echoed from the trees, a malevolent chorus that chilled her to the bone. That sound was not Luke's, something had woven its way between them. She was not just confronting Hank, she was stepping into a darkness that pressed ever closer. Who could she trust in this twisted game? And more importantly, would she have the strength to escape it? The air was heavy with silence as Emily neared the base of the tower. The fog clung to her skin, moistening her clothes and chilling her bones. Her steps were wary, each crunch of gravel beneath her worn boots echoing like a gunshot in the oppressive stillness. A low shiver snaked down her spine as she strained to hear anything other than her own heartbeat. Hank was leaning against a tree, arms crossed, shadowed and inscrutable in the murky twilight. He looked up as she approached, his eyes narrowing like a hawk sizing up its prey. "What's wrong, Em?" he asked, his voice low, edged with something she couldn't quite place. Was it concern or mockery? "What happened to that deer?" she demanded, stepping closer, fueled by a mix of dread and anger. "And why are you so keen on keeping me up in that tower at night?" Hank cocked an eyebrow, the corner of his mouth twitching slightly. "It's not safe after dark," he replied, glancing into the trees behind her. "You've heard the stories. You don't want to end up like those poor souls." The great trees loomed, their branches twisted like the gnarled hands of ancient witches. Emily fought the urge to recoil. The disappearances. She pressed, desperation pooling in her gut. You're not saying they disappeared because of what? He interrupted, his temper flaring. Because of the forest. It's the mountain. It's never been quiet. Not here. The cold air felt sharper with his words, slicing through whatever relief she hoped to find. She took a breath, considering her next move. Why did you even hire me? He shrugged, dismissing her question with a wave. Some people are made for the wild, Emily. Some are changed by it. That's when the laughter returned. It sliced through the trees, high and jagged, sending electric pulses of fear coursing through her. It wasn't the innocent mirth of children, it was a sinister play, a chorus of delight at her discomfort. Do you hear that? She whispered, eyes wide, scanning the tree line. We have to go back up. We have to get out of here. Hank laughed, but it was hollow, echoing through the fog. They like to toy with those who stray too far. You felt it, haven't you? The presence. It's wrapped around you. Emily's pulse quickened. This isn't game, Hank. It's not funny. The laughter faded momentarily, replaced by an uncomfortable silence, thick and ominous. Then, from the shadows, something moved dark, quick, and vanishing like smoke. Emily gasped, feeling the pull of the unseen, begging for her to follow. But she wouldn't give in. Hank! She shouted, backing away as dread filled her throat. We need to go. But Hank stood unmoving, a sentinel in the thickening gloom, looking not at her but into the darkening woods as if it held secrets only he could understand. Emily, he said slowly, almost reverently, some doors, once opened, can't be closed. It was then she saw it, a flicker of movement like a breath, or was it a sigh? A shadow that darted just beyond the edge of the trees. Panic ignited in her chest as the realization struck, she was not the only one out there. What do you mean? She barely managed, her voice a trembling whisper. But Hank remained silent, lost in the allure of the dark. With a rush of instinct, Emily turned and ran, her heart pounding, feet clambering on the wooden steps of the lookout. As she ascended, the laughter returned with a vengeance, chaotic and overwhelming. The door slammed shut behind her, but the sinister echo of that laughter thrummed in her ears. She pressed her back against the door, breathless, refusing to turn. Because somewhere in that darkness, she could feel eyes watching, waiting. As she listened, the whispers grew louder, morphing into a single desperate question. What were they waiting for? The fog outside thickened, the air heavy with malevolence. Whatever had woven its way between them was closing in, and she could feel it breathing down her neck. Emily's fingers trembled as the lights flickered, casting shadows that danced violently against the walls. Was this her last night in the tower? Would dawn greet her, or would it find another mystery nestled deep in the woods? And then, amidst that cacophony, came a soft tap on the window, delicate yet unnerving. What was out there beckoning to her? The tap echoed like a distant gunshot, freezing Emily in place. Her breath hung in the air, thickening the tension. With trembling hands, she forced herself to look toward the window. Outside, the fog swirled like a living thing, and there was again a faint shifting in the shadows that made her heart race faster. The tap sounded again, more insistent, drawing her gaze like a moth to a flame. Glimmers of moonlight broke through the dense clouds, casting ghostly shapes that danced across the ground. Suddenly, she felt an overwhelming urge to understand, to see what waited just beyond the barrier of glass. But something primal told her to stay away. Stay back. She shouted, though the words felt weak under the weight of her fear. The flickering lights buzzed angrily, and she strained to hear over the humming nothing, just an echoing silence that crawled under her skin. Emily pressed a palm against the frosted glass, her heart thundering in her chest. As if sensing her dread, the tapping morphed into something else entirely. A scratch, a low scraping. Whatever was out there was more determined now, its presence tangible. Maybe it's just a branch, she whispered to herself, but the voice inside countered, reminding her that branches don't whisper her name in mocking laughter. Just stop it. She yelled, tears pricking her eyes. Just leave me alone. The scratching ceased. A tense stillness blanketed the world outside, hanging heavy in the frigid air. Then, as abruptly as it had stopped, a voice emerged, soft yet unyielding, like a caress laced with barbed wire. There's no one here but you, Emily. The chill slithered deeper into her bones, and her instincts screamed for her to run. Reality cracked, threatening to break under the weight of that voice. Who was it? How did it know her name? Dark shapes pooled outside, shifting and flickering like the shadows cast by a campfire. The urge to flee pulled at her, but her feet felt rooted to the wooden floor. Then she spotted something moving closer, a thin, pale hand curled around the edge of the window frame, fingers long and wispy. Emily gasped, stumbling backward. The door behind her felt like the only solid thing in a world gone mad. She fought for control over her racing heart as the hand gripped the window tighter. In a desperate act, she grabbed the nearest object, a heavy iron lamp, and raised it, preparing to strike. Go away! She screamed, but her voice quivered. The specter outside tilted its head, a grotesque grin spreading across its face, too wide, too unnatural. You can't escape what's inside you, Emily. You belong to us now. In that moment, the glass shattered. She barely had time to react as shards flew into the room, puncturing the fragile air. Emily swung wildly, the lamp connecting with the figure just as it surged forward, the weight of the unseen propelling it upon her. She staggered back, adrenaline pushing her towards the door, but the world tilted as the figure crashed against her with unnatural strength, the shadows writhing around its form as if alive. Grim determination filled her as she forced the door open, narrowly avoiding being pulled into the chaos of darkness spilling in. She fled down the steps of the tower, adrenaline flooding her veins. The laughter returned, engulfing her, and the suffocating fog wrapped around her like a shroud. She sprinted into the night, desperate to escape the malevolent whispers that chased her, the realization dawning that it wasn't just in her mind. As she burst into the woods, the horror intensified. She wasn't alone. The laughter harmonized with her own frantic breaths, echoing eerily among the trees. They were all around her, but where? A heavy weight pressed on her shoulders, as if the forest itself bore down, hungry and waiting. Something tugged at her, something deep within the shadows was calling, and the fear of the unknown was no longer her greatest terror. What awaited her were the depths of her own memories, entwined with the sinister presence lurking in the dark. Run, she breathed, urging herself forward as she plunged deeper into the woods. But the tugging wouldn't let go. It was magnetic, pulling her back toward that terrible tower, and she feared that she might have to confront her demons head-on before the night was over. Then, from behind, she felt it again, the soft whisper curling around her thoughts, each word unraveling the fibers of her sanity. You can't hide forever, Emily. We know where you are. But did it mean that they were watching her now? Every branch crackled underfoot as Emily surged deeper into the tangled woods. Heart racing, she could feel the forest closing in, the chill thickening the air like a suffocating blanket. Each whisper of the wind seemed to carry echoes of laughter, taunting her, reminding her that she wasn't alone. Shadows twisted ahead, shifting amongst the trees, and panic clawed at her throat. Stop, just stop, she muttered, trying to convince herself as much as the dark figures lurking beyond the dim light of the moon. There was an urgency driving her, a desperate need to keep moving, to escape the unshakable sensation that woven fear was hunting her own heartbeat. She sprinted further, darting between the trees, gasping for breath. But the closer she got to the heart of the forest, the more oppressive the fog became, thick and cloying, swirling like a living entity, constricting her. Suddenly, a chilling realization washed over her. The laughter, was it getting louder? Were there more of them? Frantically, she looked back, half expecting to see the twisted specter from the tower, its elongated fingers reaching out for her. Nothing. Just the fog swallowing her surroundings, but the sound grew clearer, more cohesive, and it chilled her to the bone. It was their voices. "Emily, why do you run?" they sang, a haunting harmony blending with the night. "You'll find us sooner or later, no," she shouted, her voice cracking as frost nipped at her skin. "I won tea." But inside, she knew, she sensed that this was only the beginning. The deeper she ran, the more she could feel that magnetic pull tightening like a noose, guiding her back toward the places buried in her past, dark memories which she hoped to keep hidden forever. A sudden rustle sent her heart racing anew. She stopped, her breath hitching in her throat, peering into the dense thickets. There was no movement, no sign of pursuit, yet a weight hung in the air, an oppressive silence laden with anticipation. "Emily," the whisper wrapped around her again, closer, more intimate. It felt like a caress against her skin. "No. I am not afraid of you," she shouted, clenching her fists. The defiance felt small against the vast darkness pressing in. But something flickered in the corner of her vision, a shadow darting behind a gnarled tree. She inhaled sharply and took off again, her feet pounding on the earth beneath, but the thrill of escape quickly waned. Every time she thought she had gained some distance, the oppressive sound of whispers grew louder, wrapping around her like a vine. "Remember us, Emily, remember what you've done." The words latched onto her thoughts, pulling memories to the surface, images of laughter, joy, and a sudden darkness that had consumed her life. Friends lost, smiles shuttered, promises broken. The weight of guilt pressed into her chest like a vice as the shadows twisted closer. Just as she stumbled over roots, she felt something cold and slimy wrap around her ankle. She yelped, looking down in terror to see a serpentine fog writhing around her, pulling her down, dragging her into the depths of the ominous woods. "No!" she screamed, struggling fiercely against the tendrils anchoring her, pushing her toward the ground. With adrenaline firing through her veins, she kicked out, the fog recoiling slightly, but it was relentless. "Come to us, let us in." They were all around her now, voices overlapping, deeper than before, echoing her many fears. Desperation surged as she tore free of the fog's grasp, scrambling to push herself upright, just to crash into something hard and solid. Panicked breaths escaped her as she turned to confront whatever awaited her. Before she could process it, a familiar figure materialized from the mist, the grotesque grin of the specter from the tower stretched wide, shadows spilling around it like liquid night. "Welcome back to where you belong, Emily." The pull of recognition washed over her, and a horrifying realization settled in her stomach. She was back. Back at the tower. But that wasn't the worst of it. The shadows behind the figure began to grow, multiplying, coalescing into haunting forms she recognized, ones from her past. "Now we are truly together," the lingering voice of her long-lost friend cooed, eyes full of betrayal and darkness. Panic surged once more, and she turned to run, but where could she go now? The silhouette of the tower loomed ominously behind her, and the sound of laughter echoed all around, blending with her own frantic heartbeat. As the darkness swallowed her once more, she couldn't shake the thought it had always been there, lurking, waiting for her to return. What if this time, it wanted more than just to gather shadows? What if it craved her very soul? Emily stumbled backward as the figures emerged fully from the shadows, the still air thick with muffled gasps and echoes of her past. Their faces were twisted, memories distorted beyond recognition. Each visage held a piece of her, lost fragments pleading for release, but also threatening to consume her. "Emily," the specter grinned wider, its sharp teeth glimmering in the muted light. "You can't escape us. You left us here. You abandoned us." "No!" she cried out, hands trembling as she pushed against the weight pressing down on her. "You're not real. This is just a nightmare." But their laughter rang through the trees, the sound a cacophony of unhinged joy, each note striking her like a knife. She felt herself disintegrating under their scrutiny, her own guilt redirecting itself into fear and despair as she clawed at the ground, desperate to find something solid to hold on to. "Remember us, Emily. Remember the promises you made." The chorus of ghostly voices surged, wrapping her in a shroud of despair. "You thought you could run forever, no." It came out as a hoarse whisper, barely audible over the growing storm of dissatisfaction and accusation beneath the trees. As if spurred by her denial, the tower loomed larger, a dark monolith in the twisted embrace of the woods. The shadows surged forward, eager to reclaim what they believed was rightfully theirs. The figures retreated momentarily, and for a second, she thought she saw a glimmer of a path a way out, but darkness pulsed around her, and the moment faded. "Join us, Emily," they beckoned, their voices harmonizing into an alluring melody. "Here, you can be whole again. Here, you'll be safe." She shook her head violently, trying to filter through the numbness that was creeping over her. She thought of the last time she had been in this place, the promises she had made to herself to never return, to move on. The guilt twisted into her throat like a coiled snake, ready to constrict. Breathing heavily, she turned her back on the tower, on the faces, and bolted into the dense fog once more. Every instinct screamed at her to stop, to face what she buried, but running felt like the only option left. The fog wrapped around her, nearly blinding her, yet she kept pushing through. Branches scratched at her skin, twigs snapped under her feet. It was a race against time, against her own memories. "What did you do, Emily?" The spectre's voice echoed, booming now, each word crashing over her like a wave. "You brought us here." Lightning split the sky above, illuminating the woods in sharp, ghostly flashes. She could see them clearer now, the figures gaining ground, arms stretched forward as if ready to tug her into the void. In those moments of illumination, she caught glimpses of them pleading, their faces etched with both sorrow and rage. "Stop running." One of them, a shadowy version of her childhood friend, lunged, fingers latching onto her sleeve for a moment before she wrenched free. Heart pounding, Emily broke past the trees and stumbled into a small clearing bathed in eerie stillness. A faint light glimmered in the distance, a promise of escape. But looming behind it was the tower, more menacing than before, its dark presence swallowing the light as she hesitated, caught between the urge to flee and the unsettling attraction of the memories dragging her back. "Don't you dare leave!" they shrieked, a chorus of fractured echoes now crashing together. Behind her, the fog deepened with intent, swirling ominously, about to suffocate her instincts. Taking a deep breath, she pushed herself toward the light in the clearing, as if somehow it could provide sanctuary from the suffocating gloom. But just as she reached the edge, the ground trembled, and ice-cold fingers gripped her ankle, pulling her back. "Fight, Emily, or accept your fate." With an almost primal fear, her struggle turned into a furious fight, wrenching at the darkness around her, but the shadows were many, and they were growing restless. What if their desire for revenge was only the beginning? What if they wanted her to join them in their torment? As she felt reassurance fading and the fog curling around her legs, a haunting realization struck. What if those faces were just the start of a greater darkness lying in wait? "Don't let go," she heard the whisper again, a voice she recognized but couldn't place. Was it calling to her, or warning her? Emily fought against the pull, but only time would tell if she had the strength to break free, or if the whispers of the past would capture her soul entirely. Emily's panic surged, an electric current running through her veins. She kicked at the shadows entangling her feet, heart racing like a trapped bird. Every tremor of the ground echoed her desperation, threatening to swallow her whole. "Fight, Emily!" she hissed at herself, turning to face the murky tide rising before her. The fog thickened, swirling with malicious intent, as more spectral figures emerged. She could see their hollow eyes boring into her, reflecting pain and resentment. She wasn't merely a target, she was their past, their grudge materialized, and they wanted more than to just drag her into the depths. "Why did you leave me?" The words spilled from a shadow that took the form of her younger brother, his face twisted in sorrow that morphed into rage. "We needed you. You were our savior." "No!" Emily screamed, choking back tears. The memories threatened to distort her reality, igniting flames of guilt under her skin. "I was a child. I couldn't save you. I tried." But the shadows didn't relent. They pressed closer, gleefully laughing, their eyes sparking with a twisted delight. In their frantic yanking, they brought forth more phantoms, each heavier with despair than the last. Friends, family, they comprised a tidal wave of grievance that crashed relentlessly against her psyche. Emily. Don't you remember the games we used to play? The fun we had? Another voice chimed in, a sickly sweet tone that curled around her, suffocating her. Well, that it was a charade, a sickening masquerade. A trap built on her sorrow. She pivoted back to the flickering light beyond the clearing, the faint beacon of hope pulling her like a moth to the flame, a haunting promise. As she tore away from the shadows, she felt their fingers skimming her skin, chilling her resolve. Why won't you embrace us? One of them screamed, slipping momentarily through the fog. We're all you have left. No. She cried out, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her resolve was faltering. Doubt gnawed at her, a whispering seduction that said maybe they were right. Maybe she deserved to be here, to be with them in this endless torment. A shudder ran through her body as she cast a desperate glance over her shoulder. Just beyond the fringes of the clearing, the tower loomed higher, ancient and gnarled. Alluring, yet terrifying. It pulsed with the energy of the damned, pulling at her core. The specters sensed her hesitation, a cacophony of howls erupted that threatened to drown her in despair. The air crackled with their desperate need, and Emily felt as though every heartbeat echoed with the sound of her past calling her back, a drowning song luring her towards the tower. Join us. You won't be alone. They beckoned, their voices almost soothing. But she shook her head violently, refusing to let that darkness pull her under. The strength she had been searching for began to ignite within her chest, fierce like a wildfire determined to claim its territory. She pushed against the shadows, squeezing her eyes shut against the storm of voices threatening to invade her mind. With renewed determination, she sprinted towards the light, willing herself not to turn back. Every step felt like running through quicksand, but she gritted her teeth and surged ahead, her feet pounding the forest floor with relentless defiance. Emily. This is where you belong. They wailed, despair turning to fury. Just as she reached the radiant light illuminating the outer edge of the clearing, the ground trembled again, the fog convulsing in tandem. From the depths, an ominous growl rolled through the trees, shaking the very air around her. A new, darker presence was awakening. What if the past was only feeding something far worse? The whispers faded momentarily as a chilling shadow stirred just beyond the light, a presence darker than any specter, lurking with an intent far more sinister. Emily's heart thundered in her chest. What awaited her beyond that shimmering sanctuary? Would she escape one nightmare only to stumble into another? The darkness wasn't finished with her yet. Emily burst into the glowing light, her heart pounding violently ever louder in her ears, drowning out the whispers pulling her into the abyss. The moment she crossed that threshold, the shadows shrieked behind her, their wails reverberating like thunder in the heavy air. She spun around, eyes wide, consumed by fear as fog slithered across the ground, creeping, wanting to reclaim her. She took a deep breath, struggling to settle the wildness inside her. The glow around her felt warm, yet it was tainted with an undercurrent of chill that clung to her skin. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced, safety and danger intertwined. The tower loomed ahead, its stone gargoyles glaring down as if judging her resolve. Would it offer guidance or lead her deeper into terror? Before she could move, something shifted in the light. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the radiance. Emily. The voice cracked with an urgency that sent chills racing up her spine. It was familiar, holding a tone she never expected to hear again. Mom. She whispered, disbelief flooding her thoughts. The form stepped closer, revealing features she knew so well yet couldn't reconcile with the surroundings. Her mother looked as she did years ago, her eyes vibrant, illuminated by the very light that threatened to consume Emily. I've been waiting for you, her mother said, the warmth in her voice battling the cold reality. You made it. But uncertainty crawled under Emily's skin. In this place where shadows flickered and reality warped, how could she trust the form before her? Is it really you? She asked, her voice nearly a gasp. Yes, sweet girl, her mother cooed, a tender smile spreading across her lips. Come to me. I can help you. I can free you from their grasp. The tainted sweetness in her voice clawed at Emily's throat. The phantoms in the darkness were now silent, as if anticipating her next move. Images of her mother flooded Emily's mind, baking cookies on a rainy Sunday, endless stories at bedtime, that last hug before leaving for college. Yet with each cherished memory came a sliver of doubt, memories intertwined with loss. I tried to save you. Her hands trembled helplessly as she took a cautionary step forward, straining to believe. I know, sweetheart. Her mother's voice softened, almost serenading her. But it's time to stop fighting. Just let go. Join us. That last word sent ice coursing through Emily. Her mother's passion twisted eerily into a puppeteered marionette dance. It was the same glorifying allure, the shadows conveyed the same endless darkness she had fled. No. She shouted, fear surging anew, stronger than before. Panic surged like wildfire. Just as she turned away, the ground erupted beneath her. Emily. The shadows howled, a tempest unleashed. The radiant sanctuary shattered as the fog surged, dark tendrils stretching out hungrily, clawing at her like 1,000 fingers eager to reclaim what they had lost. In that instant of horror, the tower's door creaked open, promising a corridor of safety but perhaps only leading deeper into madness. She ducked, heart racing, teeth gritted against the encroaching storm. Time slowed as she dashed towards the doorway, desperate to escape the wrathful cries of the phantoms behind her. With an almost magnetic force, she flew through it, tumbling into darkness. She landed on cold stone, breathless, gasping for clarity, her body trembling. The air was heavy, pressing down on her like a shroud. The door slammed shut behind her, cutting off the howls. But now, silence, deep, suffocating silence, wrapped around her, drawing closer. She could feel the essence of the tower pulsating. The whispers began anew, deeper, more twisted. This place, this dark corridor, it was alive. What have I done? She murmured, the shadows of guilt creeping back, whispering their seductive lies. But the echoes of her mother lingered too. Had she really escaped? Or was this just another layer of entrapment? As she stood in the silence, she felt the terrifying realization weave through her, she was not alone. Something lurked. In the shadows, something eager, waiting for the moment she slipped. Then the darkness began to shift around her. A pair of eyes flickered to life in the void, glinting with hunger. What was hidden in the bowels of the tower, and would Emily find a way to fight back before it was too late? The feeling of being watched gnawed at Emily's nerves. The eyes in the darkness glowed faintly, flickering like dying embers. She steadied her breath, her heart thundering louder than before. The corridor, shrouded in cold stone and deeper shadows, seemed to pulse in rhythm with her own frantic heartbeat. Show yourself. She shouted into the pall, straining to sound braver than she felt. The silence swallowed her words whole. The air buzzed with tension, and she could almost hear the walls breathing. Emily stumbled forward, searching for some flicker of her surroundings. Her hands brushed against the rough, damp stone, and she felt her way along the wall, desperate for escape. The whispers grew louder now, curling around her like smoke, filling her with dread, coaxing her to give in to fear. You can't run, you can't hide. The voices were multiple, dripping with malice. They danced around her head, pricking her skin with icy fingertips. With a sudden thrust, she turned. The eyes, now larger and more distinct, moved slithering across the shroud of dark to converge in the corridor. A shape began to form, something twisted, contorting between the shadows and the light, shrouded in an ever-evolving cloak of dread. Welcome, Emily, it hissed, the voice a low, mocking tone that echoed through the space, reverberating off the walls and vibrating in her bones. Who are you? Emily bit out, twisting her body to face the source. She was met by the unsettling smile of a stranger, its face an amalgamation of twisted features, like a reflection in a funhouse mirror. I am a keeper of the forgotten, it sneered, moving closer, dragging its form into the dim light. I tend to those who falter, to those who stray too close to the truth. Panic shot through her. She couldn't let it near her. I want to be a part of your games. She shouted, squeezing her eyes shut tight against the horror unfolding before her. Games? No, dear Emily, this is no game. Its laugh sent chills down her spine, a sound that pierced through her and filled her with an electric jolt of terror. This is reality, shaped by your choices, your fears. Then, the corridor transformed. The stone walls warped, twisting and stretching, painting a nightmarish tapestry that revealed flickers of her past moments of grief, of despair, each echoing in a loop, their essence magnified and grotesque. She gasped as she saw herself falling, crying, always trying to escape. Join us, Emily, the creature continued, its voice an intimate whisper now, approaching ever closer. Your past could serve you, survival is fruitless here. Accept your fate. Panic surged anew, and Emily took another step back, her instincts screaming at her to flee. She clasped her hands over her ears, focusing on the dark space around her, anchoring herself to her defiance. No. She cried out, her voice cracking. I won't give in. You'll never take me. In that moment of defiance, the creature's form flickered, uncertain. Emily seized the chance, spinning sideways and racing away. The shadows reached for her, chill fingers dancing across her back, dragging her into a snare of looming despair. Her breath quickened, each step heavier than the last. She had to get out, had to find a way back to where light thrived. The air thickened, each breath stinging like ice. Another escape route loomed ahead, a darkened passageway on her right, pulsating with its own malevolent energy. Run, little girl. The shadows crooned, their voices creeping up behind her like a fractured melody. Where would she go? Emily hesitated for only a moment before diving into the right passage, the cold darkness swallowing her whole. It wasn't safe, but it felt instinctually correct. She barreled forward, the walls tightening as if the darkness itself conspired against her. With every turn, with every scraped knee against the sharp stone, she could feel the pulse of the tower beneath her feet, alive, and hungry, and in that endless nothingness, she wondered whether she could escape before its whispers turned into screams. What lay ahead in the shadows, and would it consume her before she found the light again? Emily darted through the narrow passage, her heart racing like a wild animal desperate to escape a hunter. The shadows clawed at her heels, dragging over the rough stone floor like fingers eager to pull her back into darkness. The flickering darkness seemed to move with her, morphing into twisted shapes that threatened to close in around her. The air shifted, growing thicker with each frantic step. It smelled of damp earth and decay, a stale stench that reminded her of graveyards. She stumbled over a protruding stone, barely catching herself against the wall as a sharp pain shot through her palm. She pressed her hand against the cold surface for support, feeling the pulse of whatever lay beneath. You think you've escaped? The creature's voice, whispering like the wind, floated in from behind her. Each syllable twisted in the air, an echo that sent shivers racing down her spine. There's no escape from the past, little girl. Feeling the tug of despair, Emily fought harder. With each push forward, her memories surged, fragments of failure flashing in her mind. She saw her parents' disappointed faces, her friends turning away. But she couldn't dwell on that now. She had to survive this nightmare. A faint glow flickered at the end of the corridor, a promise of light that made her gasp with relief. Hope surged through her, igniting a heat that consumed her fear. She sprinted toward it, the light pulsing like a heartbeat, calling her closer. Maybe it was a way out, maybe it was safety, but just as she reached the light, it flickered and dimmed, replaced by the shadowy shape stalking her. The walls seemed to shift and warp, creating a maze that tested her resolve. There's nothing for you there. It called, laughter curling around the words like smoke. It's just another illusion. Desperate, she pressed on. The light became brighter again, pulling her in, urging her toward escape. She had to believe it was real. She surged ahead, pushing past the haunting whispers, willing her body to move faster despite the growing dread that clung to her. When she finally burst through the flickering barrier, she tripped into a wide, open room. The air was lighter here, but the glimmers of hope were quickly overshadowed by the looming darkness at the edges, the malevolent presence lurking just beyond her vision. "Welcome to the Hall of Regrets," a voice echoed, deep and resonant, vibrating through her. The shadows formed into figures around her, all wearing faces she recognized, her past, her failures, friends she turned away. They surrounded her, mouths moving in silent screams, their eyes filled with hollow despair. "No!" she shouted, backing away from them. "This isn't real." But as she turned to flee, the dark shape from the corridor emerged, blocking her exit with a grotesque grin splitting its face. "Reality is a cruel mistress," it taunted, advancing towards her. "And you are its servant." Trapped and terrified, Emily's mind raced. Was there truly no escape? Were all those she loved forever lost in this web of darkness? She felt the weight of their expectations crushing down on her, each memory a chains that pulled her deeper into despair. Then, a flicker of rebellion sparked within her. She wouldn't let them take her down without a fight. She turned to face the creature, knuckles white against the sudden resolve. "You don't control me. I am more than your whispers," she declared. The room around her trembled. Shadows shrank back, and the figures wavered. Could she truly shatter this nightmare? But as that thought crossed her mind, the air turned frigid, and a deep, echoing growl reverberated through the chamber, drowning her resolve in doubt. "Then let us test your strength, shall we?" the creature hissed, eyes burning brighter as the shadows thrummed with renewed energy. What trials lay ahead for Emily as she stood defiantly against the embodiment of her nightmares? Would her bravery be enough to pierce the darkness, or would her past find a way to consume her whole? The ground trembled beneath Emily. She could feel the darkness pressing in, its fingers tightening around her resolve. Determination surged through her veins, fueling a fire within. She wasn't just a lost girl anymore, she was a force, a spirit fed by the haunting specters of her past. "I won't be chained by regret." She screamed into the void, her voice echoing with defiance. The shadowy figures paused, surprise etched across their fragmented faces. The creature's grin faltered for a heartbeat, revealing cold confusion before morphing back into a snarl, its twisted features flickering with rage. "You think your words hold power here?" it hissed, advancing like a hound of darkness, the air vibrating with its presence. "More than you know," Emily retorted, taking a step forward, dispelling the shadows with her light. They recoiled, momentarily blinded by her defiance. She felt strength radiating through her, the warmth of hope that had been buried for too long solidifying into a shield against the encroaching darkness. Amidst the chaos, she remembered each moment of sorrow, every tear she shed, but they didn't feel like shackles anymore. They were scars, reminders of who she was and how far she'd come. "You don't define me. I define myself." The air crackled as she unleashed the echoes of her past, not as chains, but as armor. Suddenly, the room erupted with noise, a clamor of discordant voices crying out in protest. The shadows swirled violently, almost as if they could physically feel her rejection of their hold. Emily's heart thrummed with courage, an unquenchable fire roaring in her chest. The creature faltered, uncertainty spreading across its grotesque face as it clutched at its form, the shadows flickering and dimming. "You dare defy your past? You are bound to us!" it shrieked, a churning vortex of anguish and rage. "No. I'm free from your grasp," Emily shouted, unleashing the strength she had cultivated. Every word breathed life into that power, igniting the room with illumination. The light glimmered fiercely, and the figures of her past began to dissolve, breaking apart like glass shattered by a sudden force. Unrelenting, she advanced toward the creature, her resolve unyielding. "You're not real. You are shadows, whispers, afterimages of pain." With each step, the shadows around her transformed, retreating into wisps, no longer able to withstand her light. The creature clawed at the air, spitting dark threats as it recoiled, but its voice was laced with uncertainty. "You can't escape who you are." "Maybe not who I was," Emily replied. "But I choose who I will be. I'm more than the mistakes I've made. I'm the survivor who fought her way through every storm." The light pulsed, filling the room until it felt like she was on the verge of bursting into flames. With one final battle cry, Emily surged forward, pounding her resolve into the heart of darkness. "I am here. I am whole. I choose to live." The light exploded outward, flooding the chamber in brilliant illumination, washing over every twisted shadow until they melted away into nothingness. As silence engulfed her, Emily staggered, breathless yet victorious. The room felt different now, lighter. The shadows that had closed in around her were gone, evaporated into the ether, remnants of despair turned to dust. The whispers faded, replaced by an echo of her own resolute heartbeat. She stood there, panting but unbroken, feeling the weight of freedom on her shoulders. The tower was no longer a prison, it had become a testament to her strength. She turned toward the doorway, eyes wide as she faced the light outside. With one last glance at the darkness behind her, Emily stepped forward. Outside, the sun was rising, the sky painted in hues of pink and gold, a vibrant rebirth. The wilderness stretched before her like an invitation. The air was filled with promise and the sweet scent of new beginnings. And beside her, the shadows her memories had transformed. They had no power now. "Thank you for the lessons," she whispered, releasing the echoes of her past with peace flooding her heart. "Goodbye." As she walked into the dawn, the warmth of the sun wrapped around her like a long-lost embrace. She was free, ready to forge her path through the wilderness ahead. Emily took a deep breath, feeling lighter and more alive than she ever had before. This was her moment of rebirth, her chance to rewrite her story. The past had shaped her, but it wouldn't define her future, and somewhere deep in her heart, she knew she would always carry the lessons learned, like a guiding star, lighting her way forward through the shadows of life. If you loved this thrilling journey, you need to subscribe now for more exclusive stories that ignite the imagination. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and remind us to keep telling these tales. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about Emily's journey, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who crave a ride through the extraordinary. Your support matters more than you think.